Fans off.
It's okay. I'll leave
No,
them here.
it's fine. Good. I just turned it on this morning. I turned it on last night to make sure it'd be cool enough, and then. Okay, if you were to proclaim prophetically, because it's future, that there would be an economical demise and the la 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 la, you would be one amongst now literally hundreds. Because that is now the almost constant process of calling out for the demise of the stock market, but more than that, more. Okay? Now, if you want to look at a situation, and I say this because it's good to look, sometimes we don't have examples, we don't have the symptoms to know what to look for. If you look at Venezuela right now, you find out that 2 years ago, Venezuela was a modern, functioning society, city streets filled with new cars. I mean, it was a thriving middle-class country. And now it is in horrible chaos. And the deal is that the government is so entrenched with the military that the people can't get the current president out of Venezuela. So everybody languishes in that situation. I saw a picture of the government now is not being able to pay their own employees. So of course they walk off the job. What's the point of staying working? And which I always tell you, as when people say, well, if this is bad, we'll still have this and we'll have this. And the point is, no, you won't, because people are not going to work for nothing. And so they've all walked off the jobs. Well, that's why you're getting sometimes electricity for as many as 4 hours a day is kind of maximum. If you get electricity for 4 hours a day, you're doing really good. Sometimes it's 2 hours a day. Some days there's no electricity at all. Saw a picture of the water that's now coming out of the tap because there's no government employees to work all the filters and the systems. The water is running low because of drought, and the water coming out of the tap is brown. I don't mean it's tinted, I mean it's brown. And that's what people are having to drink because there's nothing else. And it's like the guy said, you talk about making it bad. Here's the, and one of the things Venezuela does not have is toilet paper. They ran out of that long ago. I saw a picture of the food lines that stretched for over a mile, and people were standing 4 deep at the minimal, sometimes more, on a long line progressing up to a market. Whereas when they get there, they may or they may not have any food. And you're talking about buying power now, not just that they showed a wad of money. That I told you this, the wad of money they took out of the ATM a day. That's what you can take out of the ATM. And that wad of money, which probably had, at least 100 bills in it, if not many more, was worth $25 as purchasing power. Plus the inflation has gone well over 100%. The government just prints money. Just prints it. It's worthless. The more they print, the less they have. The more they print, the less valuable, the more inflation. And the thing about it is, and that's what I've always tried to emphasize to you, if you have money sitting in a bank and say when you put that money in, you put in $5,000. Okay, that money only represents what you can buy with it. It does not represent value. Okay, it doesn't say, it's not like I can take this big wad of money and say, hey, I've got a lot of money, and the numbers on the money say it's worth $5,000. What will you give me? Well, here, how about one grocery cart? Because that's the buying power of it. It's not the marked value, but the buying power. And so, while people have money in the bank, and they print and print and print more money, that just evaluates the very money they have in the bank. So the money is eroding to zero as they sit there. But the problem is they take it out of the bank and they're limited on how much they can take out. So it's not like they can take all their money out. It's not like you could take your $5,000 out and run hurriedly and buy something of a commodity nature that would retain its value. They only let you take out so much. So they constantly erode what they have, and yet they take it out. Okay? Now that is called an implosion. A banking implosion. And an implosion means they figured in such a way as to rob you of your money while it's in the bank by making sure you can't take it out. Even our government, I heard the other day, is now limiting. They're now, I did not read the article, so I can't say I verified this, but they're saying now that you can take out only $3,000 without having to sign the forms and everything else. So they're limiting the amount of money you can get. Was $10,000, then it dropped to $5,000. Now it's down to $3,000. So that's kind of what I'm trying to tell you all along, is that you think you have cash in the bank. You don't. If they decide what you pull out, understandably, everything left in that bank is going to deteriorate to the point of worthlessness. So it's what you've got, that what you can do with when you have it to do with. That makes sense? Okay. This is the most understandable article I've ever read on how to interpret what is really happening and to see it in the overall picture. Now, let me just read bits and portions of it, because it made sense to me. If it doesn't, we'll talk about it. No one knows when the next collapse will be initiated, but all the factors are there. Anyone who does know the timing isn't going to be telling. Nevertheless, it seems clear that it's only a matter of time, and it won't be just economically. The political system is also collapsing, but what form will replace it? As that point approaches, the repeated shocks to the system have broken it down, and true recovery becomes a longer process, and each adjustment comes with its own form of tyranny. What is said is that the system is poised for rupture, and those that caused it are waiting to provide that brand of solution, quote, in the aftermath. That is, unless we awaken and change things to a sensible system. Okay, the only place I disagree with him on is that it's too late to awaken. We have no vehicle of change. We have nothing that will change it. Okay? How the system breaks, first it slows down. Alternatively, we can cling to a state of denial that the dominant system will be replaced by an archetype systems that are not necessarily positive. Understanding our currency social economy is a system of subsystems enable us to project how and when unsustainable subsystems will finally unravel. The reality that cannot be spoken within the conventional media is that all the primary financial systems we believe are permanent and indestructible are actually on borrowed time. One way to discuss this decline of resilience is to look at how long it takes systems to recover when they are stressed, and what degree they bounce back at previous levels. Okay. I'll give off characteristic signals when a disaster is on the corner. A phenomenon called critical slowing down is a lengthening of the time a system takes to recover from small disturbances such as disease that reduce the mental population in the system toward a different system. Okay. Now, what got me about this was the parallel of it. And everything breaks down system because of the fact of how long does it take from this point to rebound. Okay, you take a healthy person example, and they get sick. Okay, and they say, okay, here we applaud. You go to the doctor and says, okay, you should be doing better in 2 to 3 days. Okay, in 2 to 3 days, you're not doing better. Okay, so the doctor you come back better. Okay, then the doctor says, okay, there's some underlying process because your body should recoup with it's actually drawing your strength out. So you have what we think it's brought on by this cold. Okay, the cold should go away. The cold doesn't go away in a prescribed time. You go back. He says, okay, this and the infection in 1 or 2 weeks doing great. Meaning if you are healthy and this is what 1 or 2 weeks later you're doing worse. You go back to the doctor and you know what? Because your body is not capable of responding to what it is. So at some point he says, you know what? I think we've got sepsis. Okay, once that's diagnosed, then it's a fight for your life. Because now he says your body has reached a tipping point where it is no longer capable of sustaining, even with the addition of antibiotics or anything else. We can't sustain you. So now all we're going to try to basically keep you alive. So seeing is this, the initial slowing down process and factors that cannot be reversed are that your system is for a moment. It was not long ago, and you've got to recognize the speed of this. It's significant. It wasn't long ago that we invaded Iraq. Okay, our reason for invading Iraq was lie after lie after lie, weapons of mass destruction. Oh, we didn't find any. Okay, well maybe we did because Hussein threatened and sent a party to kill George Bush Sr. Okay, based on one. The point of our economic is to retain reserve currency. That is the pivotal point of our economic system, i.e. of all of America. It goes, we go. So when Saddam Hussein started talking about abort, which was removing money, not trading in American dollars for oil, not using it, because remember they were the second or third largest producer of oil. And so we went in to take them out of power because of that. Muammar Gaddafi, after that, Muammar Gaddafi was talking about, I'm not going to trade my oil anymore in petrodollars, or reserve currency. I'm going to start letting it freely float, bourse. Okay, based upon that, we went in and we took him out. There's nothing to do with anything else. I mean, look at the country now. It's back to barbarism, tribalism. There's nothing to it. So it's gone. That country, for all, is splintered, split up into tribal. It's gone. Okay. That's what we kept pushing because we saw it coming, and we were like, we'll push back because that is our key. Okay? So then along came the Chinese. Okay? Now China was not like Libya, and China was not like Iraq. China was more formidable than we ever thought. But China's first position was to go in and say, you know what? I'm going to go into the IMF and I'm going to become one of the basket currencies, one of the reserve currencies. Well, we protested against that. We tried not to do that. And the very people who let them in were all the, quote, NATO allies of ours that let them in. All right, that. status with the yuan. If you remember, this isn't ancient history, folks. This is within the last 2 years. So they established that. Then they came back and they said, well, you know what? We need an IMF of our own, International Monetary Fund, to loan developing countries their own. So I think it's called the BIIC, which they created their own bank, especially to lend to the Eastern Asian countries. So they created a competitive bank, but that competitive bank had allegiance only to the Chinese and not to us. So who joined the competitive bank? Everybody but us. Everybody in the world but us. Do you see what's happening with the world? We tried to put pressure on them. You can't do this. Don't let them in the basket of currencies they were in. A new IMF bank. Everybody joins but us. We're excluded. So they come on that. Then they buy the COMEX in Britain, the gold exchange. They've been hoarding gold all of this time. In fact, in the last 2 months, China has come in and swept up 340 tons of gold. Okay? Not announced. Not announced. And the reason we don't know how much gold they have is because they have the People's Bank, the federal banks, all these regionals or banks have gold, but they don't have to come out and say how much gold they have. Only the country itself has to list the gold, even though they have it. Okay, now something has happened, and if you're not aware of it, you probably didn't even see this response. Okay, gold prices started rising, which America cannot accept that at all, because the gold price rising caused the dollar to go down. Okay, so the last time we suppressed that dollar, where the gold was nearly 1,300 an ounce, we suppressed the price, put everything we had at our last shot, suppressed it down to below into the 1,100 range, turned right around, and last week, in one day, I don't know how many of you caught this, in one day, gold jumped above $30 an ounce. One day, one move, gold jumped. Okay? Per ounce, $30 in one day, one move. Increased. Silver went up 45 cents an ounce one day. The dollar dropped. Dropped one, and it was like 95 or something, and it dropped this morning. I didn't look this morning because I don't know when they start trading overseas, but as the last I looked, it was at 93.84, something around that range. Okay? What does that mean? That means what is speculated is that if the dollar and stays this a limited amount of time, that's our signal. It's done. That's low, no go below signal right there. Is at $90 dollar and like $5. Just now, understand how huge it is right now. You don't understand what signals were. The signals were whereas the Western United States constantly, our Feds are always trying of gold to keep the value of the dollar up. Couldn't do it. They faced them off. We lost. They won. Okay, this last month, not only has the Chinese government bought 320, 350 tons of gold, but they have also started encouraging all the people again in their country, buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. Okay? They're ready to make the claim. They're ready to challenge the homogeneity of the US dollar with the Chinese yuan. We can't win that bluff. We lost the bluff. They may have already bluffed us. And that's why you saw the price go up $30. because we wouldn't have let that go up that quick, that fast, if we could have held it down. We couldn't hold it down. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. The system is weak. If we were strong enough, we'd come back and battle it, and we could have the currency wars in there, which would keep ours up and theirs down. The Chinese already devaluated their yuan because they wanted to. It was in their interest to devaluate it. Now they're putting the gold into it. It's just something, you know, it's almost like, for me personally, I'm sitting there looking out the door, and you can't see. I'm looking out the door and I'm going, you know, there's a tornado out there. I see it. You know what? The tornado's not going left nor right, and it's not getting smaller. So that only means one thing. Which is it? It's coming towards us. Okay? As that tornado, you got a visitor, honey.
Oh, yeah.
As that tornado comes for us, I'm sitting there going, that tornado is coming. Now, here's the problem. I can't really measure that tornado unless I can see something that is static along the way, immovable. I'm saying, well, you know what? That tornado is now at the crossroads between that, and that's 5 miles away. So I can tell you the tornado is 5 miles away. Okay. All right. Then the next time we look at it, you know what? That tornado has grown bigger, and it's at the next mile marker. So it's getting closer and closer. Okay? The same thing is true. Now, let's look at this a moment. We are totally unable to change this. Now, but what we're really looking for are the signs that all this big falderall about recovery is now a bunch of bull, as we know it has been, because our statistical numbers are identical with 2007, 2008, prior to the crash. Do you understand? We're talking bubble numbers here. Okay? Same. Okay? I like this. Recovery, Obama press secretary admits, White House not too disappointed over unemployment. Now, realize this, that it was your president who said the other day, if people say the economy is not doing good, they're peddling lunacy. Okay? Now, let me get you to the numbers here. Okay. The United States right now has the strongest, most durable economy in the world, he claimed, Obama, during his last State of the Union address. We're in the middle of the longest stretch of private sector job creation in history. But since then, nearly 95 million Americans are no longer in the labor force, which is a 38-year low. When President took office in January 2009, 80 million Americans. Now there are 14 million more, almost 95 million now. Okay? Last month alone, nearly 500,000 Americans dropped out of the labor force, and U.S. companies are now hiring at their lowest pace in over 5 years. Non-farm payrolls rose by a seasonal adjusted 38,000 in May, the weakest performance since September 2010. The labor force said Friday, missing the estimate of economists surveyed by the Wall Street Journal by over 100,000. Revisions showing employers adding a combined 59,000 fewer jobs in April and March than previously estimated. Together, May's weak job growth and the revisions bring the average monthly gain in the past 3 months to 116,000, a sharp slowdown from the average 219,000 growth over the prior 12 months. So what does it mean when we're not hiring? It means we're not making. If we're not making, we're not having an economy. If we don't have an economy, here's the point. You think about this. You have 95 million Americans out of the workforce. Okay, what is 70% of our economy based on? Our own people. Our economy, 70%, is based on you buying manufactured goods, right? let's say 330 million Americans, 95 million of those are unemployed. So 1/3 is unemployed. How is that 1/3 going to have enough money to generate a robust economy? Okay. Billionaire George Soros dumps 37% of his stock to buy up massive amounts of gold. The suggestion seems to be a point of no return is coming for the stock market system of illusion and usury. The Fed's great bubble is getting ready to burst. It's playing out on a time frame decided undoubtedly by those closest to the inside. Worse, the end of the U.S. petrodollar is playing out with plenty of geopolitical drama as currency wars threaten to undo the foundation that the nation has been resting upon. When the music stops, all economy will shatter and collapse in the devastating wave that will catch the vast majority of Americans off guard. It isn't the first time Soros' positions have served as a stark warning. Soros is shifting towards gold because he understands what's coming and likely has several tricks up his sleeve. According to experts, fear of the dollar is driving his gold purchases. Maybe the best argument in favor of gold is that the American legislature and billionaire George Soros, who once called gold the ultimate bubble, has resumed buying the precious metal after a 3-year hiatus. On Monday, the billionaire investor disclosed that the first quarter he bought 1.6 million shares of SPDR Gold Trust, the world's biggest gold exchange trading fund, valued at 123 million. Okay, Soros moved. Let me get this. Even though gold, the price of gold is quoted in terms of U.S. dollars for now anyway, there is no direct relevance to the U.S. dollar, according to Juan Carlos, Director of Investment Research of the World's Gold Council. With that said, gold moves are sometimes linked to the dollar because the metal often trades inversely to moves with the greenback. When investors fear the U.S. dollar is losing power, on the verge of imploding in this case, they rush to gold to hedge their bets and vice versa. It said the U.S. is about to be screwed when it is no longer able to conduct trade with worthless U.S. dollars and no gold. Things are unraveling, things are accelerating, and change is going to happen in a very big way. For those who are unprepared, it will be very, very bad. Things will absolutely collapse once the dollar is dead. Okay? And I have another one, Alan Greenspan, The Coming Destruction. Alan Greenspan warns Venezuela, under martial law, America is next. So, I could read, but it's just...
Isn't it kind of strange that these same people who are now declaring this are same people who are kind of in power leading up to it? Like Alan Greenspan?
Well, yeah. I mean, what moves things along? What are the things? You create a what? You create a crisis to create a new solution, right? Okay. So, as we see these things beginning to emerge as they are, and as the currency thing starts unraveling, it is already unraveling. It's like a flood that you don't you know, it's like rising water. It's like rising tide. The only way you know the tide has risen is not because there's one big wave that comes in and the tide is up. It's the same number of waves that always come in. But what you don't understand, you have to stick something in the ground and go and watch it, and that way you know if the water starts coming past there, the tide is coming in. You won't know it until the tide is in. And it's the same thing we deal with now. Okay? So, will it come? Are we posing ourselves for an October-November collision? Politically and economically. Because if the Chinese undo us, we've undone ourselves. But if the Chinese push this last thing and it happens, I mean, it's I don't know how to tell you, it's unraveling as we speak. Does that make sense? It's like a fire. It's like a fire on the horizon you see, and that fire begins to be bigger and bigger and bigger and starts moving in and moving in. I can remember when I was in Granbury, and they had this big grass fire. Back then there was just open fields and things, and they had a big grass fire, and they kept saying, you know, the grass fire is coming, this, and I'm like, you know me, okay, well, let's go see. So I'm going to be safe, but I'm going to watch the fire because it's just fixing to hit houses. And I pull across a road, and here's, a normal 2-lane paved road. And I parked my little car on this side of the road because I'm like, well, we're good. And I'm watching the fire, and as it's coming, these flames, you cannot believe the flames. These flames, you think of grass fire. Okay, what does a grass fire look like? And so your grass is tall. Okay, flames this high. These flames are jumping up 12 feet high, 14 feet high. And when they come in, there's like a tree off the ground. All of a sudden, that tree just goes and bursts into flames. I've never seen a fire like that. And I'm sitting on the other side of the road. I walk down from my car to look, and I'm standing there off the road on the other side watching, thinking, well, it's going to hit this road, then it's going to stop. And it hits the road, and it kind of momentarily stops. I mean, the flames are still there. They don't die. Momentarily, it stops. And then all of a sudden, the grass, the trees, everything on the other side of the road just goes and bursts into flames. Wow. I'm like, dog. I look down the road, and the grass is burning around my car. And I'm like, oh, it's time to get out of here. So I run down and get in the car and swoosh out as quickly as I could. Any more time, it caught the wheels on fire, the gas tank, the whole thing would have gone up. But it was just amazing to me. This wall of fire just stood on the road. And then it's like the other side just went, carried right on. And that's kind of what we have here. We're standing at the road and we're watching all these flames going up. In our mind, we're going, okay, well, then the road will stop it. Something will stop it. Something will happen out of the great gift bag of God or gold or guns. Something is going to happen and we'll be safe because we're on the other side of it. And asphalt doesn't burn. But then, one day, okay, and it won't. And here's the sad part about it. I remember in 2008, you didn't really know what was happening unless you could read between the lines. Okay, what did we know? AGI went under. Lehman Brothers went under. And any of y'all into Lehman Brothers and AGI? Did that make any difference to y'all? Did y'all see any difference about that? No, Goldman Sachs almost went under. What was all this meaning? It meant that at that moment, our whole financial system was in a state of collapse. I think that's when, was Bernanke or Geithner? I think it was maybe Geithner at that time. Went into Bush and said, look, if we don't do something, We have 72 hours. And then this whole country will collapse economically. Every bank will close. That's why if you read after the fact, some people on that meeting, there was one guy at that meeting when Geithner went into the president and told him what had happened. And he communicated to his wife in California. He was in Washington, of course, and communicated his wife to California. He said to her, go now to the nearest ATM that you can find and take out all the money they possibly will let you take out. And I saw the memo because they'd written it out. And Shiro Bank said, well, what are you talking about? $5,000? What are you talking? He said, every dime you can take out of that ATM, get it out now. And she said, well, it's late. Why don't I wait till tomorrow? He said, if you wait, you're too late. By tomorrow, they should be shut down completely. That's how close we were. And nobody knew it. I mean, they knew it. We didn't know the extent of it. And as it unraveled, they did all the, well, we're in control. Well, the Federal Reserve is going to, remember when Bernanke said, I will dump money out of helicopters if necessary to save the economy? Okay, we're right back there again. We're no different than we were then. Nothing has been different. In the 8 years since that period of time, we have improved nothing. Okay? The banks took all the money, $4 trillion of printed money. The banks took the money. The lion's share, I'm talking at least 4 trillion of the 4.5. 4 trillion went to the banks because the banks were supposed to lend it to people to stimulate the economy. The banks kept the money because they said, why should we, we got in trouble by making bad loans, loaning money to people that couldn't pay it back. So we're not going to do that anymore. That's where we got in trouble. So what did they do? Money. They invested in stock market. They invested in treasury. Okay? So we're looking at that money didn't go to the people it should have gone to or didn't stimulate anything. It just created bigger debt. Okay? Do you know in Japan, and now we've got 0 rate on interest. In other words, you pay the government to put your money in the bank. 0 rate on interest. If you buy, and China and Japan is a very good example of this. If you bought a government security, a bond, in Japan today, you would start making interest on that bond in 2066. 50 years before they'll pay interest on it. Because they're just trying to pay interest on interest. They're already gone. They're already, as they say, the government is already, it's just waiting for that final turn the lights out. Okay? And there will be people that when they turn the lights out, I mean, just gonna turn the lights, shut the door, and walk away. There's nothing more. Okay? Now, how are you preparing for this? Are you preparing for it? Are you mentally prepared for it? You don't go to the stores? And I say this to you in all reality, Venezuela is an example of what we can experience because Venezuela's currency went to zero. The inflation ate it alive. Is this an accumulation that's coming down to the fact that in October 2nd will be 16, 17, will be the beginning or the end of Jubilee? One of Israel's big oppressors will be taken off their back, us. What do you think? Again, I run through a simple scenario with you. Give me an amount of money relatively that you think you have in savings? Got it in your head? Okay, you know what you're talking about? The money you want to keep. How much money do you want to keep? Have you got it? I mean, if you don't have it, you don't have it. So don't imagine, well, I'll take my $500,000. Well, if you don't have that, that's lunacy. Okay, I'll take my $50. Okay? Whatever you have. All right? Now, when I say go, what I want you to do is determine in your mind what you're going to do with that money. And then think about it. Ready? You can discuss it with your wife. I'll even let you split it with her. Okay? Be nice, okay? So we split it with her. Okay, hon? Ready? Okay. All right, okay, how much money you have? Okay, you have. Okay, you got it? Okay, you got it? Ready? Go. You have 1 minute. Think. What are you going to do with it? Well, you've got plenty of time. Wow. Your minute's so long. Now this is hoping you both have vehicles because you got to split. You can't go the same way. Knowing that in 24 hours from this point, whatever amount of money you have left will be worthless. 24 hours. Go. All right, you've had your minute. Tell me the first thing on your list you're going to do. Just one thing. What are you going to do? Sarah.
Go to the grocery store and buy anything that lasts so long. Any kids stuff.
So you're going to strip the shelves of canned goods.
No. Chris hasn't beat me there.
Gonna fill a
My
basket
question-
and pay. Fill
okay.
another basket and pay.
So my question is, in 24 hours, how much of that amount of money did you spend?
Not much.
Probably 3,000 or 4,000.
The rest is gone.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, what do you do?
Batteries and propane.
Batteries and propane. Propane and propane containers, I'm
Right.
assuming, land that you got. Okay. Now, you can get delivery of this in 24 hours?
Oh, no.
Oh, well, you know, if you can't get delivery, it's no good.
He's gonna clean all the little propane
Go
things.
buy all
I'll
the
go buy all
small
the $30 5 gallons.
Why not?
At
Oh,
the
I
end-
absolutely would.
At the end of 24 hours, how much money did you include?
How much did I spend?
Yeah, I mean, whatever you didn't spend, you lost. You don't have to tell me the number. But just estimate in your own mind. How much did you not get?
Oh, I
Because in my
I can only
opinion,
spend about 10,000.
in my opinion, unless you have tanks
Right.
and the capability of it, 24 hours is not enough.
We're trying to do prep working out, so if you're looking for a Samsung option like propane and stuff like that, you already need to know where can I lease things, where can I get things from
Uh-huh.
to fill up that. I wouldn't get right now, but.
And mobile tanks, because they got
Maybe I'd go to
Yeah.
Costco
Mobile, you
instead
just
of the
gotta go to
grocery
Google.
store too.
I
So
could
within
probably,
that
I could
24
probably
hours-
get 6. I bet you could get, I bet I could get 10 tanks in 24 hours.
Uh-huh.
At-
Do you-
at a
Ten.
high- 10 propane tanks.
And
See,
big
five-
ones?
500, no. 500
Okay, if
gallons.
you got 10 propane tanks in 24 hours, you would have to fill them and move them.
Mhm.
Get them, fill them, and move them in 24 hours, which means that people working
Have to be able to do it.
have to be able to do it. Okay, now,
But
if
if I'm
you
gonna
have
lose 20,000, I guarantee $1,000. I'm gonna pay an inflated cost for this, there's no doubt, but I can make people, I can motivate people with that money I'm fixing to throw away,
Okay,
because they don't know it's worthless.
okay. So, let's say let's
And
say
I know the people would call.
$2 a gallon, and you have 5,000 gallons, if you have 10 tanks and that's 5,000 gallons. So you got $10,000. So you only lost 10. If you used a figure of 20,
Right.
start with you only lost 10. What'd you do?
I understood batteries, but that isn't gonna go, I mean,
Okay,
You
now,
spent $500.
I know, that's the one.
Maybe $1,000 to put
oh
most.
no, $1,000 is less than 10 batteries. If you're talking car batteries.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
RV, deep something,
Oh, yeah.
$90.
Oh, 90 is cheap.
Yeah, but you're gonna buy all those and they're not gonna last.
You know, what are you gonna buy?
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, you can spend a lot of money on batteries, but once you get past a certain amount, you're still just throwing your money away because you can't keep them charged.
Yeah. Okay. And 24 hours you have, how many batteries?
$2,000, right? 2,000, maybe.
Oh, my head. And then my money becomes toilet paper.
There you go, toilet paper.
Dan?
I already did that.
Yeah.
You did that last time. the
Yes,
question
sir.
was
Yes,
asked.
what do you do?
About like 3 years worth.
Probably use as much credit cards as we could,
No, you have cash.
just cash.
Yeah.
Um,
Is they're going to know that? And
They're gonna know.
We're making Costco money.
yeah, it'd be the same point, I mean, I could probably spend between 5 and 10,000 before I need stuff to be able, trucks to ship it, all this kind of stuff.
Jill? And how much toilet paper do you have left in Lisa's room?
I have it takes a lot to move toilet paper, so I mean, I've come almost $1,000.
Okay. Joseph?
I'm writing Sonic.
I need the little Coke you got, or in the yellow bottle.
I can see Joseph excited. I'm gonna drink it away. I'm gonna drink it away.
I'm gonna buy their machine.
The Coke machine for sale?
Okay, what are you gonna do, Brad?
We talked about perishable, gas.
And you're either gonna buy the tanks or have enough tank to put gasoline in.
I would go top off everything too. Make sure everything I have is top
But
off.
that's not gonna cost
It's
you
not
much.
gonna cost much, but
What's for us?
Well, that.
Jennifer,
I don't have big tanks.
I gave them that, Brad.
you
Batteries, batteries.
batteries? Bear,
I'd probably top everything off and go back.
can you get it delivered in 24 hours?
I think that in 24 hours.
You can, okay.
Most big, not doing anything.
Okay, in where?
Texas.
Okay.
You'd have to drive it down.
How's the line?
Yeah, you have to drive there, 10 hours driving and you got,
And 24.
that's right, that's right. As long as that's all you want, you got. Kent, what would you do?
Generator and freeze dry.
Can you get it delivered in 24 hours? Okay, where would you get your freeze-dried food? You got a source? Breedloves? Okay. Teresa? Mm-hmm. And you can get them out there in 24 hours, hopefully. I mean, you got to make sure they're not servicing Chris's because he's. You're okay. You got them rolling, so you can go fill them up. Okay.
And then hopefully that's Dale's job and then I'll take care of my grocery store.
Okay. Okay. Do you know what I'm going to do?
I'm gonna buy whiskey and cigarettes.
I'm gonna go buy
I'm
marijuana.
not
It's all
opposed to
going
that
down.
either.
It's all going down. If I wanna barter with something.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send. I'm going to get the dump trailer. And I'm going to go to Costco's and tell Sarah to fill it up. And while she's doing that, and I mean to the top, I'm going to go to Gold and Silver Exchange and I'm going to exchange as much money as I can for gold and silver, whether it's actually gold coinage, silver coinage, or just jewelry or something, I'm gonna put as much as I can. In fact, I'd put all of it in gold or silver because that would give me more time to leverage later, and it would keep the value of my money up instead of it going down.
Will we know 24 hours in advance?
What?
Will we know 24 hours in advance?
He's just standing there like this. I roll the ball, it goes right between his legs. He looks at me and goes, hilarious. Hilarious. Yes and no. Last time, you didn't know 24 hours ahead of time.
What
This
happened
time,
that leveled it back out last in April?
level it back
Nothing
out.
shut down in April.
The banks had no money. They ran out of money. They all had credit, and the loans were going bad. And they
I
had,
remember
Geithner went
when
in
all
and
this-
turned on the presses, and they printed money 24 hours a
So
day.
don't try that again, but it's gonna eventually not work.
Well, here's the problem. I mean, we're getting away from this scenario. So let me get back to the scenario, and then we'll go to the problem. Okay, the deal is that if you think you won't know in 24 hours, which is a good chance you won't know in 24 hours, then you need to activate as much as you can now before the 24 hours, so you have a minimal amount in case in case they give you 6 hours of notice, or in case you notice there's lines forming it. You drive by Stripes and there's a line of cars there, you better know something. You didn't hear something that
I
happened.
think we'd be the first in line,
Well,
because we.
yes, yes, I think, but when the information gets out, it's out.
Okay.
Do-
Because we
do-
live in the country, other people will beat us there because they live in the country.
Yeah, so you do what you can now to prepare for that right now and have everything ready to go and know it. And you know, my advice, and you think this is maybe trivial, but my advice is you get your cards, I call it Ken's computer cards, because he carries his computer in his pocket with his pencil, and you get his computer cards, and you go through Costco and you start making lists. Because imagine you running up and down. Now, okay, ready? Go! You got 24 hours, and whatever you get, you gotta get, and you better hurry, and there's everybody else doing it.
I know exactly what
If everybody else is doing it, I'm not going down.
Well, here's the whole point though. You're going in Costco, and you may be going, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and everybody else is, or they're running by, or they're doing things. It's, okay, let's picture it this way. Worst case scenario, we're talking about 12 o'clock at night at Kmart, at Walmart. What do they call that?
That's what I would want.
Midnight Madness. Midnight, it's going to turn quickly into Midnight Madness. So if you think you're just going to go in there and, oh, someone just took, you put it in your cart and someone just reaches down and takes it out of your cart. I mean, what I'm trying to stress is that you've got no stress at this moment thinking about this stuff. Okay? Now, other people are going to, and the thing about it is, what we're going to see is a crescendo of things start moving this way now. We're going to see inflation start going up just like this. The dollar's sitting at 94. If it goes below 92, that ought to be your signal. You better do something now, because it's going to keep going. The value go down, the inflation goes up. Okay? If you see it,
But that's the problem though, as long as it's going up now, people don't have that cash flow. They won't have anything to go.
remember the article I read you last week about how many people can pay $1,000 in an emergency? Okay, you just think about that. Now, but here's the other thing about it. If it's an emergency and they don't have the 1,000, most of them have a gun that they call the new credit card. Okay, so that's what I'm telling you. That won't stop people from reacting, because if people believe they're entitled and they deserve it, and why should you have it? Just because you have money doesn't mean, well, where'd you get your money?
But I'm like
If you had money and I didn't have money, then you got it wrong.
But I'm like, Bear, why would I want to risk my life? Or why would I want to risk that to, when I've got enough already to survive on? Why would I want to go to the store to spend that? Unless it was not an,
The answer, obviously, because you asked an obviously answerable question, and the context is you wouldn't.
right.
But the question is, okay, $5, okay? It's your money. Here's your hat.
Can't believe you just. Michael,
What?
why are you doing that? Michael.
That's what's happening to your money while everybody else is spending their.
Right.
Yeah, there's a cognitive track to that too, because at the end of the day, you should not proclaim the other side of the argument, because the other side of the argument is you got that $5, you can't have holding nothing, but how much is that $5 worth now? And that's the flip side of the argument.
No, I'm not saying that. My argument, that's not the argument. What I'm saying is, that's what you will observe all of your money happening to it.
Oh, I know. So,
Okay.
I still have a life.
You know, it's not always the presentation of either or. So what would you do not to be in that situation?
Bye.
Well, if I cross the river, even in a Ma Deuce, if I cross the river, like at Fort Hood, it could still drown. Well, okay, you either don't cross the river, obviously, or you cross the river before it floods.
Well, yeah.
Okay, but you have to do that. You have to do that. You have to initiate that action. And the point is, how many people are going to initiate the action? You know what? Give this to Becca, because I know she will piece
she'll
it
put it
back together.
It won't be.
Yeah.
Can you use it if it's?
Oh, yeah, you piece it back together, tape it back together. Still have as much value as when it wasn't. What I'm saying is, what
It's $5, really?
what I did, yeah, I opted at 20, I didn't want to do that one. What I'm saying is, you have to do that. But most people don't do that because they're waiting. And the thing is, you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait.
The thing I wrestle with is always, we've done and done and done. I wrestle with the fact is how much, and I know until the very end, we'll still be doing, but I still know some of that stuff is bad.
Well, okay, the alternative to this, if you've stored stuff and it's gone bad and you need the stuff, if you have the money, replace it.
Yeah. Just
Because otherwise, are you going to be eating the money?
No, no. I'm just talking about, of course I will. If I can.
If you can.
Right.
That's my point. So you ask yourself, when do you do something? When you can. When you have the ability. Otherwise, once that passes, it doesn't matter
So
anymore.
it's time to go ahead and buy batteries, is what you're saying.
Well, I would put it this way. If there's something extremely perishable, like I wouldn't necessarily buy bananas.
Right, oh my gosh.
Or buy extremely green ones, if you knew it was imminent. But
They don't
Buy
last
3
any
years
longer.
worth every 3 days.
I would not buy bananas unless I bought a dehydrator to make banana chips and then store them in there, okay? There's always a way to look at it, but what I'm saying is, if I wouldn't buy bananas, but I would make sure all my ducks were in a row, that I could realistically do something that I wanted done in 24 hours. I mean, that would be the next most obvious step. I would locate my batteries. I know where I'm gonna go get my batteries, okay? And I'd say, okay, I'd go look at the places and I'd say, okay, how many batteries do you have in stock? How many batteries do you have? I'd look around and see. And then I'd say, okay, where are most people gonna go? The very first place most people goes for anything.
Walmart.
Walmart, that's where I wouldn't go.
They don't-
Because number one, the lines, number two, they don't have that many, quite honestly. But I would find places that had batteries, and I would go and make sure which ones I want. I'd research what I needed. I'd know the kind. I would make sure I had, because here's the deal. You may say, okay, take for example this. How many trucks we have? Everybody just about has a truck, right?
We have 3.
Y'all don't even have 3 people.
Make him buy one of Bill with the dual pipe.
Better teach him.
Oh, I want to shut up for 3 cars too. I didn't think about that. I forgot that
But
right
not
now.
3 trucks.
Yes, we have 2 trucks.
A blazer, does that count as a truck?
But what I'm saying is, okay, how much you gonna put in a Blazer? Or how much you gonna put in a truck, or how much you gonna put this, or how much you gonna put in a car?
Make sure you have a trailer.
Right. The next thing is, if I were gonna do something, do I have a trailer or capacity to move things in? You know, and a lot of times, here's where we, I see you. He's hiding again. Here's the problem we have. Sometimes we're talking about, well, you know, I got that old trailer out there. But that old Bear's got no red trailer out there. The Bear may or may not know is it's got a flat tire on it.
Or no tire.
Yeah, oh, it's definitely flat. It's a new tire, but it's flat. So the question is, okay, we're gonna pull that tire up there and I mean, you understand what I'm saying. If you're not prepared, you're gonna be overwhelmed. And the worst thing you're gonna have is anxiety in a moment, and it overwhelms you to the point that overwhelming creates a paralysis. Okay? It just creates a paralysis. And you're like, now, well, this talk just makes me anxious. Oh, okay, what do you think reality would make you? What do you think that would make you? You know, when I go to a place, you know, if I go off, like if I go to Dallas, do you know one of the first things I like to do? I don't always get it done immediately, but one thing I will do in the process, think about it. When you go to a destination, when do you fill your tank? When you get there or when you start to leave? Most people fill it when they start to leave. When I was driving back and forth to Dallas, the first thing I did when I got into Dallas, I filled my tanks. Because if I had to get out of Dallas, I wanted a full tank of gasoline to get on. I knew how far I could get. So I filled it up. Now, I know that's paranoia. Okay? But paranoia may keep you alive, actually. It's not as bad as it seems. I don't seem distraught, do I?
Will cash have a value
Short term,
a while after this?
after,
Because people will keep thinking it's gonna be worth something someday, or this cash will come back.
it will have, yes, people will think that immediately. The authors that I read about this, who discuss this, say you may have a week window, 1 week, before people go, this same stuff ain't coming back.
But you'll.
But that doesn't mean that during that week, people will not still be hustling for everything they can get. What that means is someone's gonna go, well, after this is over, I'll keep my money, and when it all settles back down, I can take my money and go back and get what I want. That's the mentality.
People still think money's gonna be.
Yes.
So why would there be a mad rush?
Well, because not everybody has money, honey. And when they realize that it's going the way,
Here's the thing, is you gotta take the scenario into full account when you look at Venezuela. What money's a representation of the buying power, which remember is it's not just the consumer that has to function on money, it's also the producer who has to function on money. So at some point what happens is the stuff that's on your shelf starts to dry up pretty quick. If the producer's not gonna deliver a product, if they can't make money off the product, they have to have a constant cash flow in order to do what happens is in Venezuela eventually reaches a point where you're doing black market dealing where people aren't taking cash or gold. Unless there's black market or high-end product, you're gonna have people pretty high up who are willing to take gold. Everybody else is taking produce and commodity for commodity. It becomes straight trade, it becomes a barter system at some point.
but you have to understand, that sounds great, but your black market is never as large or as efficient as your economy.
Well, I wouldn't rely on the black market.
But that's what I'm saying.
And you have places like West Texas where, here's the problem in West Texas, nobody produces a product here. There's not a single product produced in West Texas, unless you want to buy vertically produced, I mean, fish oil and those. What's that? Cattle, maybe cattle, but even that, I mean. you gotta have-
No, not since we've had the cattle, not since that thing, people are kind of leery, everybody jumped back in the cattle, then cattle started hitting the, as it always does, supply and demand catches it. But,
But I think you're gonna find the shelves drop pretty quick when the
Yeah.
cattle starts to run.
oh, what, the transportation and people, and it's just, you think about it a minute, you want a good scenario, look at Florida when they expect a hurricane. No matter what they have on their shelves, they're gone. Strip bare. Because food stores only keep a 2 to 3 day supply of food maximum.
And here's the thing is when you're, whatever your money's worth, anybody who privately owns a business, any semi-private owned businesses where the owner's on site can adjust the price, as product starts to come off the shelf, the price goes up drastically. So like, for example, gas stations in Louisiana, you go buy gas, and you can have $1 a gallon on one block, and the next block down is $5 and $6 a gallon.
Yeah. And the guy with the gallon is gonna be out, and if he doesn't realize it,
Because the
he's,
cops are sitting in his shop making sure he doesn't price the gallon, the next guy down minus
Yep.
$5 a gallon.
yep, yep, yep. Okay,
And then all the disappear because nobody's gonna,
and nobody's gonna protect their family unless they do.
and then you get mob mentality, so you wind up.
That's what you have in Venezuela now. You have riots in the street and mob mentality, vigilante. Remember me reading the story about the guy they thought stole $5 from the older guy, so they beat him up, poured gasoline on him, and set him on fire?
And here's the thing too, is guns are definitely a threat in those riot situations. What's gonna happen is you're gonna have 100, 200, 250 people hit the Walmart all at once, and the shelves will be gone. And what's not gone will get destroyed in the brush.
But by that time, should have already filled our carts.
I'm telling you though, the second people know that the shelves are gonna, I've seen the shelves in Lubbock clear out in 24 hours, gone.
Yeah, that's why you
Every
use
drop of
there
water,
under
every
24
drop of
hours.
water was gone.
Because you wait for that and it's not. So that's what I'm saying. Should know, should know.
But may not.
I mean, the reason we didn't know in 2008 is simply because we will not have that delusion in 2016.
You better,
Oh, no.
once panic sets in, you better be self-sufficient at that point, because it'll return to, there'll be some sense of trade again at some point, but you better be able to hunker down and hold out till all the riffraff figure out.
Well, and the point is, the people in Walmart are not going to stay there. Why would they stay there? They're going to take what they can and leave. I wouldn't. Why risk my life? I mean, what about the
There's still gonna be, I think, a period of time, although short, where we figured it out, but they don't.
Okay,
But the first person
Let
that
me
braids
tell
the
you
shelf,
something. Let me
the
tell you
first person
something.
that braids the shelf, happens at Barton Mart all the
Wait a
time.
minute.
You go and buy a truck, a basket load of things, and everybody starts looking to see where you got that basket.
exactly, exactly. Let me tell you that. This is the, we're now knowing now. Now, you think it'll be there? It may not be, it was not there in 2008. So don't necessarily, if I banked on that, that's like coming into a ditch and the water's running and there's a marker on the side and it says 5 foot of water and you're going, "Ah, that's gotta be wrong."
See, I guess what I don't understand is why this didn't happen in 2008.
Because we had the capacity to turn around, because we were the gold, we were the monetary fund, we were the reserve currency. Our money was still worth something because the world was still trading it. We didn't have to give an accountability of it. Now, they're not. We can't print the money that anybody's gonna recognize. We got ourselves 19 trillion in debt. Nobody's gonna take our money.
It's the same as 2008, except
No, worse. Worse. It's much worse than 2008. We've expended our last bullet in 2008 to rescue ourselves. On credit, we had 8 years, we never fixed the problem.
yeah, I remember when you talked about the banks going, the companies going to fund.
And you just don't realize how many companies, because they don't say it, how many companies are really now going to fund that big chain companies. But they're, okay,
Everybody.
I'll rescue the teachers.
Here's what you has a hammer.